Hello, South Orange and Maplewood School District family. This is your Superintendent, Dr. Taylor, here to share with you some important updates regarding our planning for fall 2021. We're going to share with you again some key points regarding fall reopening, as well as some key health and safety guidelines. And we hope to share with you a snapshot of what fall will hopefully look like as we reopen our schools. Then we'll, of course, share some next steps. Please know that the state of New Jersey and the New Jersey Department of Education has mandated that every New Jersey public school district reopen schools to in-person instruction for all students for the 2021 and 2022 school year, returning hopefully to a pre-COVID norm, including school days, in-person lunch, and providing for the needs of all of our students. Here are some really key takeaways from this presentation. Our district reopening task force is working hard to finalize all those nuanced details that will be a part of our September reopening. Please also know that we are following state guidelines in concert with our local health department. Unless those mandates changed, we are moving forward with preparation to have all of our students in school full-time, all day, 5 days a week. So here are some important bullets for you. All students will be full-time in person. There will be no cohorts in place. Parents and guardians are not able to opt children out of in-person instruction, as was previously allowed last school year. All students and staff will be required to wear masks indoors, regardless of your vaccination status. Because we cannot guarantee that we can maintain social distance of 3 feet at all times, we will still offer our full in-person instruction, but we have to use mitigation strategies, including masking and desk partitions where feasible. School will reopen on September the 9th for grades pre-K through 7th and 9th graders. The next day, on September the 10th, grades 8, 10 through 12, and 10 through 12 will also join us. Some more important notes for you here. Here in New Jersey, we are mandated to have 180 days of instruction. But we also understand that unfortunately, we could have an outbreak that necessitates a quarantine. In case a quarantine occurs, according to the New Jersey Department of Health, we are guided to exclude a student or group of students, a class or multiple classes, as a result of those scenarios that we have discussed. If that happens, we will do as much as we can to provide remote instruction during those emergencies in a manner commensurate with in-person instruction to the fullest extent possible. Now we are so happy to have our lead nurse, Nurse Julie Porter, join us to give us some guidance around key health and safety guidelines. Nurse Porter.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. This is Julie Porter, the school nurse for South Mountain Annex and the lead nurse. I'm so happy to be here, and I wish you all a continued happy summer. So at a glance, the health and safety measures for fall of 2021. Let's start with masks, as this is a mitigating strategy that is much discussed, and masks will continue to be required for students and staff indoors, regardless of vaccination status, unless it will inhibit the individual's health. Mask breaks indoors may be incorporated into the schedule as feasible, which is the same as last year, but only when social distancing may be maintained. And also the same as last year, but worth repeating, gaiters, bandanas, and masks with vents are not acceptable. So as of the current New Jersey Department of Health guidelines and local Department of Health guideline recommendations. Outdoor masking may be less restrictive, and we'll continue to monitor that and bring updates to the community closer to reopening. Next slide is a slide from the CDC about the appropriate mask wearing and use. And the next slide, we're going to talk about health and safety measures, starting with the leading public health prevention strategy, which is vaccination. We encourage all individuals to get vaccinated. Individuals 12 years old and older are eligible. So please take time now. If you're not vaccinated and are eligible, consult your healthcare provider or visit essexcovid.org or especially covid19.nj.gov/vaccine is a very helpful website. The next bullet is that quarantine is required for unvaccinated individuals after domestic travel. And that means for us outside of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, or Delaware, per CDC and NJDOH guidance. Vaccinated individuals, however, do not have to be quarantined after domestic or international travel, but for international travel, make sure you know the restrictions and they are on the CDC website. Quarantine, we'll talk about again, is required for unvaccinated individuals after being identified as close contacts of a COVID positive case. Vaccinated individuals do not have to quarantine after being identified as close contacts. So back to the importance of vaccination. You will spend more time in school and in seat if you are eligible and are vaccinated. Other important layers of prevention to keep our schools safe are referral for screening testing, which is covid19.nj.gov for screening places, ventilation, hand washing and respiratory etiquette, stay home when sick and get tested, contact tracing in combination with quarantine and isolation, and cleaning and disinfecting, all of which we were doing in the last school year. Next slide. What will fall 2021 school reopening look like? And next slide. As in the last school year, our mitigating strategies will affect transportation, cleaning stations, social distancing, controlled movements, lunch modifications, and masking. Next slide. We've already talked about masks. So for social distancing, what is different from last year? The district will adhere to the latest Department of Education and Department of Health guidelines. They are in the road forward and they were put out in June of 2021. As we phased in the 3 feet distancing in elementary schools last school year, so secondary schools will now consider maintaining 3 feet of distance between students in the classroom settings to the extent possible while still offering full-time in-person learning to all students. Where 3 feet is not possible to do and still bring everybody into school, we will layer on the other mitigating strategies that we've talked about, including masking and then partitions. Also, you may see in the classrooms, okay? Classroom modification and common area modifications will be very much like last school year. This is where you'll see controlled movements, students being monitored in all common area locations to encourage the best social distancing practices that we can fit. Next slide. Additional hand sanitizing stations. This is the same as last year. There are several throughout the buildings, soap and water in the bathrooms. So that will continue, and we will continue to encourage students to wash their hands or perform hand hygiene frequently. Next slide. Transportation is the same as last school year. Masks, of course, must be worn on the buses. There will be controlled movements on the bus as there were before, and cleaning and disinfecting will continue as we have done before. Cleaning is the same as last year, very Strict protocols, custodians will clean and disinfect all rooms every night, and there will be attention to adequate ventilation and HEPA filters and windows being open for improved ventilation as possible and as safe. Next slide. Meals and food services will be different because we will be serving lunch, so schools with breakfast programs and lunch, building administrators and their pandemic teams will devise a plan to ensure creative use of both indoor cafeteria spaces and outdoor spaces for meals. Otherwise, everything that we've put in place before about no sharing foods, always an allergy-aware area or table, and no food celebrations, no food being brought in from outside will continue. Recess and physical education, we're still working on for the reopening task force. There will be recess, so that will be different. Physical education will have fewer restrictions on their activities, and we will update everybody as we get closer to opening. Visitors, this will be the same as last year. The visitors will not be permitted to enter the building unless they are essential visitors, such as emergency and law enforcement personnel in their official capacities, district partners, DCP&P, and health department personnel. But the principal may admit a visitor at their discretion if that visitor is determined to be necessary. Next slide. Health and wellness protocol. Same as last year, there is a parent agreement letter of compliance with COVID-19 guidelines that will be part of the welcome packet, which is on the parent portal in PowerSchool. So it's very important that parents e-sign this document in order for your students to continue to attend in-person or school-sponsored activities. We trust that parents will send their healthy children to school and sign this agreement by September 17th, 2021. Extracurricular activities and athletics is the same as last school year. These teams, these groups will be under the supervision of their coaches and activity leaders and will follow mitigating strategies as are put out by the health department. Next slide. Contact tracing in combination with isolation and quarantine. This is the same as last school year. I would like to remind everybody that if your child tests positive for COVID-19, contact the principal immediately, and the principal will get the ball rolling, and we will get going on working with the health department for contact tracing. So please, the procedure is to contact the principal immediately, and we will take care of everybody from there. Diagnostic and screening testing. The same as last year, if somebody comes to school and they have COVID-compatible symptoms, they will be isolated. Staff will be sent home, students will be picked up immediately, and we will give information about COVID-19 testing. For COVID screening testing, unless it's directed by the Department of Health, it will not be mandated. But for voluntary COVID testing, site information will be posted on the district website and always available at covid19.nj.gov. Important to know is the district has investigated the availability of COVID mobile testing units and the availability of home COVID test kits. So you will hear more about that as we get closer to opening. Thank you so much for your attention, and please enjoy the rest of the summer. We look forward to seeing you in September. Dr. Taylor?
Thank you so much, Nurse Porter. And so here are a few of our next steps. Our reopening task force and all those subcommittees who are doing such fantastic work preparing for our reopening are continuing to meet to finalize our return to school details. It's important that you know that we're going to put out a more detailed return to school guidebook to our families in the few weeks before school reopens in the fall. We want to make sure we have the latest information from the state and our local health department prior to publicizing that final important document. Thank you so much for giving us your attention. Wishing you a continued fun, healthy, and safe summer. Thank you again, and thank you, Nurse Porter, for your partnership.